Welcome to Manasik Shakti Foundation. We are talking about our course, Mind Sciences. The course is for all the students who are working hard to succeed in their life, and we are discussing about navigating challenges in students' life. When we think broadly, the nature of challenges that students face today, psychological challenges emerge as top priority for intervention. Whatever be the challenge that they face, whether it is competition or peer pressure or dealing with examination or academic support, financial pressure, romantic relationship, human relationship, social engagements, etc., they all present via symptoms of mental health. You face problem, you become worried, you develop anxiety and become hopeless, angry, and your physical health then affects. We are here today to talk about the risk for mental health, risk for mental disorder. We must remember that though mental illness is common, say about 10 to 12% students are definitely suffering from a diagnosable mental disorder. About 14-15% people in the entire population suffer from a mental disorder, and about 13%, say about 7 to 9%, not 13, 7 to 9% children also suffer from a mental disorder. But what is more important is to understand who are the people who are more vulnerable to develop these difficulties, and what are those factors, what are those conditions, what are those adversities which are likely to be potentially lethal for everyone. I must place on record with great degree of confidence and say that everyone does not develop mental health issues. Most people have evolved their mental strength in a better fashion. But there are some people who are vulnerable, whom we say they are at a higher risk. They look like anybody else. It is not possible to see them and identify that this person is more at risk for mental health problem and this person is not. No. We cannot find out from physical structure, language, communication, body language, walking, or in any other behavior. They are built into the psyche, the system of mental mechanism. We need to understand who are these people. And then we need to understand what are these factors. Why? Because it may be easy to identify mental disorder after you are more aware about it. That may be one public health policy, that if we need to make life of individuals likely to suffer from mental disorder much better, we need to identify this disorder much earlier. That's one part of the story. But the second part of the story is that we want to identify those who are vulnerable, who are likely to develop a mental health condition in any given situation. The two are very different. And we also want to know the risk situations which are specific to mental health, which are specific to a particular age group, gender, or a subgroup which is compromised, maybe physically ill. Once we know these issues, we will be having a better perspective of what mental health is all about. So mental health or psychological well-being makes up an integral part of an individual's capacity to lead a fulfilling life, including the ability to form and maintain relationships, to study, work, pursue leisure interest, and to make day-to-day decisions about education, employment, housing, or other choices. Disturbance to an individual's mental well-being can adversely compromise these capacities and choices, leading not only to diminished functioning at the individual level, but also a broader welfare losses at the household and societal level. In the context of national effort to develop and implement mental health policy in a number of countries, it is vital to not only address needs of a person with defined mental disorder, but also protect and promote mental well-being of its citizens. So the mental health will have two different perspectives. One targeted towards individuals' mental health, and the second targeted towards a group of individuals. The intrinsic value of positive mental health is enshrined in WHO definition of health. That means it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely absence of a disease or infirmity. So we are likely to call a person healthy when there is positive connotation of well-being. Just because you don't have an illness, that doesn't make anybody healthy. So the current context is that risk factors relating to mental health and ill health, as well as an overview of available evidence for mitigating risk through appropriate promotion and protection of efforts. The focus on to set of vulnerabilities and risk factors that should be taken into account when developing and implementing an appropriate health and social policy or strategy. So, number of national and international agencies have reviewed this aspect. And this aspect in World Health Organization, the document that I am referring to while I am talking to you, is providing the framework for developing mental health policies. A lot of epidemiological, social, and cultural research work has gone into to find out specific factors which are well defined as risk factors. So determinants of mental health and well-being is influenced not only by individual attributes, but also by social circumstances in which a person finds themselves and the environment in which they live. These determinants interact with each other dynamically and may threaten or protect an individual's mental health. Risk to mental health over the life course means in all stages of life. Taking a life course perspective shows how a risk exposure, that means exposure to any risk factor in different situations of life and in different age group of life, what it means to the person and possibility of developing a mental health issue. When we say that some people are vulnerable for mental disorders, what we mean is depending on the local context, certain groups in society may be particularly susceptible to experiencing mental health issues, including households living in poverty, people with chronic health condition, minority groups, and persons exposed and or displaced by war or conflict zones. Persons with mental disorders have their own set of vulnerabilities. So once somebody develops a mental health problem, his vulnerability becomes very high for a number of other conditions. For example, you develop depression, you become more vulnerable to physical illnesses like diabetes, like hypertension, like you see more impact of stress. Since the range of risk factors on mental health is wide, responses to them needs to be multi-layered and on a broad base. Broad strategies include nurturing of core individual attributes in formative stages of life, early recognition and prevention of emotional and behavioral problems, especially in childhood and adolescence, provisions of living and working conditions that enable psychological and social development and self-determination, particularly among vulnerable groups, promotion of positive interaction within and between social groups, social protection for the poor, anti-discrimination laws and campaigns, promotion of rights, opportunities, and care of individuals with mental disorders are some of the aspects which are closely linked to the risk for mental disorders or the risk for mental health condition. We have to be very explicit in understanding that those who are at a disadvantaged level, whether because of biological reason or social or psychological reason, are at a higher risk for developing mental disorders, and they need a different kind of policies, programs, strategies to provide appropriate intervention. A commonly used term, mental health, means a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with personal stress of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contribution to his or her community. A reference to this definition makes it clear that mental and psychological well-being is influenced not only by individual characteristics or attributes, but also by socio-economic circumstances in which persons find themselves and the broader environment in which they live. Individual attributes and behaviors are the first thing to be observed. What it means that these relate to the person's innate value system as well as learned ability to deal with thoughts and feelings and to manage daily life challenges. For example, level of emotional intelligence as well as capacity to deal with social world around by partaking in social activities, taking responsibility, respecting the views of others. That means your level of social intelligence. An individual's mental health state can also be influenced by genetic and biological factors. That is, it is determinant. These determinants that persons are born with, are endowed with, including chromosomal abnormalities, for example, in cases like Down syndrome and intellectual disability caused by prenatal exposure to alcohol or oxygen deprivation at birth. So these are some of the factors which are forming the background how people become vulnerable or what are the health risk conditions as far as mental disorders are concerned. There are other conditions like the capacity of an individual to develop and flourish is deeply influenced by immediate social surrounding. So there could be economic reasons, social reasons, biological reasons, and of course, spiritual reasons. We'll continue the dialogue on risk for mental health conditions.